Stefan Malmström, how's it going?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing really well, doing really well. I think I say this for every guest, but I'm super excited to have you on. You have a very interesting story from my research. I haven't looked into it too much, as I didn't want any spoilers. Um, but you have a very interesting story about sort of Scientology, your initial involvement and what it was like. And I believe you've also read a few books. I'm sure you've read a few books. You've written some books on your experiences. How about you just give us a quick introduction on who Stefan Malmström is and how your story came about?
Yes, we'll certainly do. Well, I was 17 years old when I was manipulated into the Church of Scientology. I was then living in a small town in the south of Sweden. I still live in the south of Sweden, but not in that town. I was very much into sports. I had no problems. I had a lot of friends. Had no problems with girlfriends and so on. I had a good condition, and I was, the sport orienteering.
Mm-hmm.
You know that? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that where you go and find certain spots and stuff around, like searching for things and
that's right. You
using
have a
like
map,
maps and a compass and stuff?
and often you run in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
forest. It's a big sport in Sweden, but you have some good orienteers in England too. So I was into that. I was, training a lot. I was going to be. I aimed to be really, really good at it. So I was aiming to be joining the Swedish national team. So I had high ambitions. I trained a lot of. I trained 2-3 hours a day, and but suddenly one day, me and my girlfriend, we met some really interesting and nice people in our hometown, a bit older than me. They were around 22 to 25. Really nice, smart people. One of them had just been having an exam from the university. They were what do you say in English? They were intelligent people and smart people. They were some kind of the young people in the town who were many people admired.
Mm.
And we met them one night in a flat in our hometown, and I didn't know that they were Scientologists. And I felt like I really liked them, and we started to hang out with them. And maybe 1 month later, I found out that they were into something what was called the Church of Scientology. And some people warned me about it, but since I had gotten to know these people, I knew that they were friendly and smart, so that didn't bother me. So and so it started. So I started to hang out with them even more, and then I was invited to take a course, the communication course, which is the course that Scientologists often introduce new members to. It's nothing about religion. It's about human communication, just logic. And that was the first one, and then I took the next one, and 2 hours later, I was so manipulated into this group and this Church of Scientology that I decided to quit my sports career, and I ended that and became a Scientologist, full-time Scientologist.
Wow. Okay. So, and you were 17 at this point. So
Yeah.
of course, very impressionable, but not only that, everything's bloody exciting at that age. I remember when I was
Yeah.
17, I'd have just about got into anything anybody showed me. Before we sort of get into the process of the sort of indoctrination or brainwashing or however you'd use to describe it, just for those that don't know what Scientology is, could you just give us a quick sort of explanation on its overall sort of ideology and its, what they believe and what they're up to
Yeah.
nowadays?
Yeah. It was founded 1950 in United States by an American called Hubbard. He was a former pulp fiction writer in science fiction.
Mm.
And he wasn't so good at that. And so he decided to start a religion. He once said at a convention I think it was in New York, 1948, that it was a convention for American science fiction writers. And he said that if you want to get rich, you shouldn't write science fiction, you should start a religion.
Mm.
2 hours later on, he did that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and he claimed to be a scientist himself, which is a lie. That's why he called it Scientology, the knowledge about science. So he claimed that Scientology is based on science, but that's not true.
Mm.
Then he combined that with some, Buddhist and Hinduist thoughts and ideas, like reincarnation is one foundation in Scientology, that we have lived many lives. And he developed a kind of a therapy basically based on Sigmund Freud's theories about the human mind and psychotherapy. So he stole a lot of things from other sources and put that together to one thing, and this one thing he called Scientology.
Mad. So a self-confessed fictional writer. For those that aren't sure, that means it's not real. You write about things that aren't fact. Then went on to write something as if it was fact, and it caught on, surprisingly. But I think at that time, in what year was this? I mean, this was what, 60s, something like that?
No, it was in the 50s.
50s. Yeah, well, there we go. Okay, fine. So, and you said about the therapy stuff. Is that the e-meter, electrometer stuff that's supposed to identify thetans or something?
Well,
what exactly is that?
Yeah. The e-meter is kind of a lie detector, which L. Hubbard claimed that he invented, but it wasn't him who did that. He stole that idea as well as everything else he stole. And the e-meter is used to identify in a therapy session. You have a therapist, which is called the auditor in Scientology. It's from the Greek word audit, listen. So you have a therapist, an auditor, and you have the person who is receiving the therapy. And his theory is based on that we have, we experience traumas in our life, bad experiences, physical or what's the word? Physical or
mental,
yeah, bad experiences. And these experiences affect us. We store them in our subconscious, and then if we experience a lot of traumas, they tend to affect us in a negative way. This is what Sigmund Freud said as well. So this is the piece that L. Hubbard stole from Sigmund Freud and other psychotherapists, writers, and researchers. And the therapy in Scientology is based on that. You have to find those bad memories, the traumas, those who are hidden in your subconscious. You have to remember them. You have to pick them up from your subconscious. You have to tell the auditor about them. And when you pick them up from your subconscious and you tell about them, then the bad influence on you that they have disappears.
Okay. So it's almost like the part of confession from Catholicism is also being sort of siphoned into the Scientology package as well, because that's essentially, that's what that lift is, of sharing some trauma. It's just a basic therapy session. You can get that from chatting to a friend, right?
Exactly. It's the same mechanism. But then L. Ron Hubbard, when he introduced Scientology in the 50s, the e-meter didn't exist at that point. So the auditor just tried to find the traumas. In Scientology, the traumas are called engram. Engram. And then, the first book he released was quite, what do you say? I can't find the English word. It was quite a success. And a lot of people bought it, and L. Ron Hubbard got followers. And then some years later, he started the religion. Because, a religion in the United States, or if you get it classified as a religion, you don't have to pay tax.
Exactly, yeah.
Because in the beginning, L. Ron Hubbard was very critical to all religions. He claimed to be a scientist. But then he saw the money. So he changed Scientology to be a religion. And later on, Scientology was classified as a religion. So the therapy is really the foundation in Scientology. That's the therapy is the reason why Tom Cruise, John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, and all those famous actors are Scientologists, and every Scientologist are into Scientology because they think that this therapy will make them superhumans. Because that's the goal with the therapy. That's the pitch from the Church of Scientology. If you go through all the steps in our therapy, L. Ron Hubbard, he developed you have played computer games. In World of Warcraft or in many computer games, you level up. You get skilled and you level up.
That keeps you on it. That keeps you going. That's that dopamine hit. That's the achievement. We've been chasing that since we were kids. That feeling, right?
Exactly. And L. Ron Hubbard discovered this early on, that if you make levels, then you can create new levels. And each level of therapy costs a lot of money. And so he created more levels. Before you can reach the goal to be a superhuman, or to, as they say in Scientology, to get spiritual freedom, total spiritual freedom. But actually, it's as a Scientologist, you achieve supernatural powers if you go through all the steps that Scientology has for your therapy.
Wow.
So if you go through all the steps, you have to pay between 2 to 6 million Swedish kronor.
Okay, so that's 600 to £1 million, really. It's about 100 to, it's about 10 to 1 ratio, isn't it, Swedish krona? So I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And if you go through all the steps and pay all this money and go through the therapy, you will get you will be able to affect other people without using words, just with the power of your mind. You will get a perfect memory. You will remember everything you have experienced in this life and in all your lives that you have lived. And you will even be able to affect the physical universe without using your body. So only with your power of your mind, you can affect the physical things around you.
Okay.
Your IQ will be really, really high, and you will be successful in any way in life, in relations, in business, and so on. So this is the sales pitch that Scientology use, and has been, I'm afraid, quite successful with.
Well, it's like the grandfather of the MLM period schemes, right? It's like, we don't need Herbalife and all these other multi-level marketing things. I mean, Scientology sounds like it was the OG of that platform. I mean, you're making all these huge promises. They're only attainable at the top when you reach level 100 or whatever it is, and it's going to cost like £1 million. to even get there. That sounds, if you don't mind me saying, batshit crazy. However, there's lots of crazy theories on here. We had a flat Earth guy on here just last week telling us the Earth was flat, and he was still a pretty cool guy. He just had some wacky ass ideas.
All right.
So this is what Scientology looks like. So back to when you're 17 years old.
Yeah.
And you've gone in and I'm assuming you've done your first audit. You've done your first session with the Scientologists. What was that like?
Well, you know, Scientology is quite different to other religions. Many religions, all religions, you get to know the whole package before you buy it. You know, you can read the Bible and so forth, and you get the all information. What is this religion about? But in Scientology, they don't tell you the whole package. So these things about reincarnation and the superpowers, they don't tell you until you have been a Scientologist for quite a while. So in the beginning, you are offered courses in such things, as I said. Do you want to be better in communication? Do you have better relations? Do you want to be more successful in life? And they have small courses that presents this. So, and first later on, you will get these. You get into auditing, the therapy, and get to know that. So, I started with the small courses, but the main thing for me wasn't the ideology of Scientology. That wasn't the main reason at the beginning. It was these people that I liked and wanted to be with. And this is the same thing for most religion, most cults, that the first step is about social connection. We have a basic desire or need to belong to a group. Because when we lived in the savannas many years ago, if you got excluded from your group, you didn't survive. So we have that basic need in us. You want to be connected to a group and be invited to be with a group. So that was the main reason for me in the beginning. I liked this group. I wanted to be part of that group. And then the ideology came later on. And for the majority of young people who are getting manipulated into sects or cults, this is the mechanism that is in place or in play.
It's essentially it's gang behavior. It's just tribalism. I mean, it's the same piece of human behavior that's causing this absolute uprise in identity politics that we see everywhere at the moment, because everybody wants to belong to a specific community.
Exactly.
And not necessarily caring about what the message or the mission is for each one of those communities. For a lot of people, just belonging is already enough. Yeah. And there are lots of vulnerable people around who have experienced tons of trauma, which makes it easy to be susceptible to falling into lots of these different, cults and communities, which may not necessarily have your best interests at heart.
I couldn't formulate that better myself.
Well, it's very interesting. So okay, so you've done your first meeting, you've done your first therapy session or whatever that is.
Yeah.
What was the kind of process where they kind of really nailed you down, where they manipulated into you really being a Scientologist to the point where it just became your life? Because I'm assuming at some point you start identifying as a Scientologist, you will actually associate it with your personal brand, and that's when stuff gets really dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. Because that you're so right in that, because when you're taking that decision, then it's really difficult for other people to talk you out of it. So my moment was actually, I had been hanging around with these people for maybe 2 years. I have been going through some courses. I hadn't got my first session. I was supposed to, I had one session actually. And it was this session who made me take the decision. And the session, I experienced some, I was so manipulated. So I thought I'd been experiencing some reincarnation memories. Me and my girlfriend had the same kind of experience that the same day. I write about this in my book, this exact moment. And that, when you are, as I was 19, and as you said yourself, when you are in that age, your brain works. You have this part of your brain where all the emotions are, amygdala. I'm not sure if that's the word.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah.
And amygdala is very active and strong when you are a teenager. And so now, this effect that you can have when you are a teenager, you go all into something. You can feel a lot of emotions, and you, in the same time, your brain is not fully developed. The part in the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
That's where the decision making are
yes, the logical part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex,
part. And also the part where you can judge the consequences of a behavior. And that part is not fully developed until you're 25. So you have the a strong amygdala, and you don't have a boss up here telling you that if you do this, there might be consequences. So, so when you're in that age, you can be, you can do a lot of crazy stuff because it feels good. So I got, a lot of these emotions, and I thought really that Scientology was the solution to everything. So that moment when that day when we both experienced that reincarnation memories, we took a decision and decided to start working as a Scientologist. So we went to the church and signed a paper, an employment paper actually. So you can work for the church. So we did that, and we worked 7 days a week. We didn't get salary, so we had to have ordinary jobs, daytime. So I worked as a teacher, and in the evenings and the weekends we worked in the Church of Scientology in this small town.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're about 19, 20 years old. So a couple of years after you were first exposed to the concept of Scientology. When you really started getting involved and it started becoming a huge part of who you were, how did your family think about that? Was there much sort of impact on sort of the other part of your life where, people were either sort of like concerned or found it very strange what you were doing?
Yeah, a lot. Both my family and I had a lot of friends in my, in the sport in my sports community where I was hanging around, and everyone was worried because when you take that decision, it means practically that or literally that you cut off your connections to every other friend you have.
Well, that's something that you're required to do, or is that something that just comes with it?
It comes with it. In some cults, you are required. We were not required, but we had full-time job. We just hanged around with ourselves in the group when we didn't work for Scientology. But there were no time for hanging around with other friends. So. Wow. Yeah, but and there is a policy in Scientology saying that if someone if someone around you criticizing your membership in the Church of Scientology or questioning it, then you have to disconnect from them.
Oh, I mean, that's where things get extremely problematic.
Yeah, it is. And that's one, that's one criteria for a cult.
It is.
One of many, but that's one. All cults have that kind of policy. So I had to tell my parents at some point that if you start criticizing or questioning that I am a member of the Church of Scientology, I have to disconnect with you. So please stop doing that. Otherwise, I don't want to have a relation with you.
And of course, at that point, I imagine it feels like you have all your eggs in that basket, and that the last thing you want is to disconnect from that community that you've spent 2 years getting to know and, growing some strongly held emotional beliefs towards. So, and I guess that out trumps all of your connections to family and friends.
Exactly.
Especially at that age.
Yeah. Yeah. These group became the most important thing in my life. And as you said, I had invested a lot of time in it. I had received some kind of a position in the group. And if I don't, follow the policies or act as according to the policies and the culture in the group, then I might get excluded from the group. And that's, as I said, no one wants to be excluded from it.
And going back to the analogy that you used about computer games, I still have games that I used to play now that I log in every now and again to make sure I don't lose all of my progress, right? Like, it means nothing. I'm not interested in playing the game, but I'm like, I still don't want to lose, my levels or whatever it is. And I imagine it's the same mindset with something like this. You want to leave or you want to take a big break, but you've gone up the ranks or levels or whatever it is in Scientology, and you're like, well, you don't want to lose that because you've put so much effort into valuing whatever that is.
Yeah.
And that holds up, that keeps you sort of tied, that cuffs you to the Scientology allure.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's insane. It's a very smart model in terms of, like, if I was going to create a religion, if me and you got our heads together, Stefan, and we were like, mate, let's make some money, and so we're going to do this, we're going to set up a religion. What model should we follow? Like, this is the thing we do. It's super, super smart. It doesn't mean it's right.
No,
it's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
So 20 years old, you're in now, you sign this thing.
Yeah.
That means I guess from that point, that's when you're a Scientologist, is it? Is that when you're allowed to classify yourself as a Scientologist?
Exactly.
Did they have to use any sort of specific methods to keep you in the Scientologist community? I've heard many stories of people being told certain things and being manipulated or scared into staying. Was there anything that sort of happened to you, or that you were told, that sort of made you stay?
Well, when you have taken the decision to be a Scientologist, then you sort of sign on to all the policy and structure that are governed by the leadership in our little church. If you take a look at how an organization in Scientology are run, it's very detailed instructions how to run a Scientology organization. So there are a lot of rules that you have to apply to, and then you have this informal, what do you call it, culture in the group, that you are surrounded by people you like, who act in a certain way and who tell you how to act and how to think. And you have taken the decision to become a Scientologist, and then I have to go with the whole package, if you understand what I mean. But everybody in the group knows what the goal is. The goal is to recruit as many new Scientologists as possible, because we are on a mission to save the world. Wow. That's the main purpose. because the theory, as I told you about the engram, the trauma and the therapy in Scientology, these traumas that every human being have is the cause to insanity, to criminality, to drug addiction, to war, to bad relations. That's the cause of everything that is bad in the world. So they told us that you have to work hard to recruit new Scientologists, because this is the only way we can save the planet.
Okay, so the pull is that, you know, you're convinced that you are saving the world.
Exactly, that's the mission.
Wow. Okay.
That's the mission. And I wasn't a bad, mean cult person when I was a Scientologist. I had a good purpose. And I believe that every Scientologist, most of them, I don't think L. Hubbard had that mission, actually. He wanted to make money, and then
he wanted that paper, didn't he?
Yeah, and then he started to believe his own theories because he saw that people around him believed in what he said. But most Scientologists have a good purpose. They really believe that Scientology is the key to solving the planet and all the misery and poverty and criminality and war and so on. So
during your time, especially at that age, 20, 21, 22, did there come a point where you felt like the ideas that you were pushing for were your own? Did you kind of believe in a way that you were no longer supporting an organization that had their own ideas, but you were actually got to the point where you believed you were saving the world so much, those ideas became yours? And it was like, it became a part of you? Because I see so much right now, so many organizations, so many communities, so many movements, activist things, from Black Lives Matter to Antifa to tons of other things that people are doing some serious stuff about. And they communicate these ideas as if they're ideas that they came up with themselves, when they don't realize actually someone else has given you this stuff, and then you just become passionate about it, and now it's became a part of who you are. Or did you always feel like this, you know, Scientology was something separate to you that you just believed in and was pushing for? Or did it become your own idea and identity?
That's a good question, and a tricky one. I felt like it was, you know, my own ideas, in that way that I have, what do you say, internalized the Scientology ideas, and I believed in them so much that I had made them mine. And this, you know, this happened to me many years ago, but I still sometimes, what do you say, feel that sometimes I have to say to myself, stop now, Stefan, you're thinking like a Scientologist.
Wow. Yeah, well, exactly.
You know, so many years, but this, you know, the period when you're in that age, 17 to 25, it's a very important period when you are, you know, what do you say, establishing yourself, your identity, you are shaped as a person. So that period is very important for you. And a lot of things that you experience during that period are creating you as a person.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am really into spiritualism. I meditate every single day. I follow lots of guys like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Aaron Doughty, and I'm into it. And one of the biggest things that I've discovered during my process is that, you know, we all have individual egos, and these are made up of what our individual experiences of being a human is on this planet. You know, if I was, I don't know, bullied in school, I'm going to grow up wanting to get big and strong and learn to fight. And that's exactly what I did. If I didn't get picked on when I was a kid, I wouldn't have gone on to do that. And it was just my experience that made me do these things as I grew up. And I believe if a lot more people were a bit more compassionate towards other people having different experiences, everyone might understand each other a little bit better, and they might just get less pissed off with each each other for doing things because, yeah, you're an asshole because someone was an asshole to you. That makes so much sense. And that gets fixed with compassion and understanding. And that is missing at the moment. And it sounds like the indoctrination process of Scientology really does prey on the fact that they can hijack people's experiences and force them to have these strongly held beliefs and opinions to drive their agenda, because they know full well if you spend long enough receiving this information from them, it will become your experience, it will create your ego as a person, and then you get to go out there and spread the message further and do that to more and more people. Is that an accurate representation of what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good representation. And you should remember also that we, as Scientologists, study a lot. L. Ron Hubbard, he wrote, I think, 70 books, half of them about this therapy and how to become an auditor. And half of them were instructions in how to run an organization in Scientology. And so you study a lot. So you mean, I mean, Scientologists are supposed to study 2 hours a day, and just only L. Ron Hubbard books. So you are the manipulation or indoctrination are really strong, since you also are surrounded only by people who have these thoughts and these are also studying L. Ron Hubbard's book. So you are really brainwashed.
What was the point? What was the turning point? Because what, you were 25 when you left, was it? Or you started realizing what was the eureka moment? What was it that caused you to go, hang on a minute, something's not right here?
Yeah, and that's a really absurd story.
Do it. I'm so looking forward to this.
You know, when I was 25 when I left.
Yeah.
And I was so ashamed of being a part of this story, which I'm soon going to tell you, that I didn't tell anyone about it for many, many years.
Right.
And when I met my first wife, I didn't dare to tell her this story before she accepted when I proposed to her. I didn't want to tell her this story because then I thought she won't marry me if I tell her that.
Oh, man, Stefan, you're freaking me out. Do I want to hear this?
Yeah, it's a crazy story. You know, the Church of Scientology in this small town where I was experiencing this, where I lived when I was a young man. The Church of Scientology in that town was founded by an Englishman, actually, a man from your country. He was around 45 years old, and he had started the church in my hometown some years before I became a Scientologist. And he had a special agenda, a hidden agenda, doing that. And this agenda that he had is the main reason why I sooner left the organization. You know, me and my girlfriend became Scientologists, we were really devoted in the beginning. So we took a lot of courses, we made a lot of therapy, and we soon became part of the inner circle of the group in the Church of Scientology in Hässleholm, which is the name of my hometown. And we were very proud of that and glad that we were accepted into the inner circle. The inner circle consisted of the most devoted young Scientologists, and the leader was this Englishman. And I think it was 2 years after or 3 years after I had been, when I signed the contract, became a Scientologist. David, as his name was, he told us that one night he wanted to all of us who were in the inner circle to gather in our premises in the cellar. We had a premise where we made the courses and therapy and so on. So he wanted us to gather in that evening because he had something important to tell us. And so we did. We were about 15 to 20 young people in the age of, I was 21, I think. So there was people who were 19 to maybe 28, 29, who were the inner circle. So we sat there. It was in the winter. I remember it was a snowstorm outside. And this guy, David, he came down to the basement. We were sitting in old sofas, drinking tea and coffee, waiting for David to come. So he came down to the cellar with a tape recorder in his hand.
Right.
And he put that tape recorder on a small table. And he told us that, he said, I will soon play this tape for you. It's a lecture, 2-hour lecture. But before I start the tape, I will just tell you that it's not a coincidence that it's you who are sitting in this room right now. This has been decided for many years ago that you should be sitting in this room. More exactly, for 75 million years ago. I was your leader 75 million years ago, he told us, on a planet near the center of the universe.
Wow.
Yeah. Have you heard about this, the Church of Scientology, you know, the flying, the UFOs? You haven't heard about this?
Oh no, I don't know. Is it the flying spaghetti monster I've heard of?
No,
I'm not sure.
Not the flying spaghetti monster. It's, you know, I think it's it's an American cartoon who have made
South Park.
South Park, yeah.
Right. Okay.
They made an episode about this.
Right.
It's you could call it the creation story.
Okay.
In Church of Scientology.
Wow.
The evolution story.
So this guy, this David guy, was telling a group of 20-year-olds new to Scientology that you were all here for a reason, and millions of years ago, this guy David was your leader, and on a planet in the center of the universe.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
You know, the creation story in Scientology, and this is something that, you know, as I told you, you have to level up in Scientology, and on the upper levels, then you get this information. I told you about the traumas. On one upper level, it's called OT3. OT stands for operating theta. OT3, that's one level. There are from OT1 to OT8. OT8, if you reach that level, you became this superhuman, as I told you. On OT3, then you have to read this story about an intergalactic war that we took part in. And the story is like this. You know, as I told you, the therapy aims to address your traumas, right? So that the negative effect on the trauma has on you will disappear, and then you will become a happy superhuman. And according to L. Hubbard, all the humanity in this world were experiencing a huge trauma 75 million years ago. And this big trauma are handled on this OT3 level. And the big trauma was like this. In the universe, there was an intergalactic lord called xenu, XENU. The universe were overcrowded, were a lot of too many people. So this overlord, this xenu, he decided to capture a lot of people and take them to a planet in the outside of the universe, a prison planet, and put them there. And not only put them there, he he took spacecrafts and put the people in the spacecrafts and took the spacecraft to this planet. It's the Earth, the planet.
Right. Mm.
And he dropped the souls of these people down in volcanoes. This is so this is so crazy, but this is the story. So yeah, it's a long story, but we are prisoners on this earth actually.
Mm-hmm.
And on this in Scientology, you audit this big trauma that I was telling you about. And when you are a newcomer, when you are new in Scientology, you don't get this information that Scientology is about this story.
Only at OT3.
No, OT. When you're reaching that level, then you will get that information. So before that, it's a secret. It has to be. If you are an OT3 yourself, you are not allowed to tell anyone about this.
Do you, before you reach OT3, do you know there's something? Are you aware there's something you're going to find out at OT3?
Yeah, everybody goes around, smiles, and saying that, well, this is really big stuff.
That's like the original clickbait headline as well. That is like you stick around, man. We're going to show the maddest shit ever.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, Tom Cruise, for instance, it's a rumor that he has reached OT8. So he has done OT3. So he has to believe in this story. Right?
And this story was written by L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah.
A fictional sci-fi writer. Because that's important.
Well, sorry?
Because that's important to keep drumming into people. The person who wrote. I wonder how people would react, right? If they just magically found out the author of the Bible, and then it turns out it was someone who wrote 100 fictional books about things that weren't real, but then he wrote one that it just was real. People would be like, hang on a minute. So you're in this room on these sofas drinking tea, and you're listening to this lecture.
Exactly. So this Englishman, David, who was our leader, he was our guru. He was actually high up in the levels, and he has even been working with L. Ron Hubbard in the 60s, when L. Ron Hubbard traveled around the Mediterranean on a boat. I don't know if you know that story.
Yes, I want to get to it as well.
So he was our guru. We really looked up to him. And so he told us that he was our leader on this planet. And he knew back then, 75 million years ago, that he knew what was going to happen. So he knew that we were going to be captured and brought to this planet in the outskirts of the universe as prisoners. So he arranged an expedition beforehand, who took a spacecraft with them, went to this planet, and hid the spacecraft. That was their mission. You have to hide the spacecraft so that when we reunite, we can leave the prison.
So where's the spaceship?
It's hidden. And
Okay.
he said like this, I know where the spaceship is. And the reason for you people sitting in this cellar right now is because now we have found each other again after 75 million years. And now is the time for us to escape from the prison. And I know where the spaceship is. We are going to leave the prison.
This is heavy.
Yeah. And you know then that the
What
people,
happens at OT4 and 5?
could it be better?
Amazing. Oh, wow.
Yeah. But this was a secret operation, you know. We were not allowed to tell anyone outside the group about this. What he did was not okay if you were in Scientology.
Right, okay.
Because I told you the mission we had was to save the planet by recruiting, making more people to become Scientologists. That's what the purpose. Leave the prison, we should do later on, maybe. But so it was not okay. So we were not allowed to tell anyone about this project. He started this project that evening. We were going to the spaceship was really big. It was 70 kilometers. It was like a cigar. It had a shape as a cigar.
Yeah, but was this being explained to you like this?
Yeah.
So to this, you didn't see it. That he's telling you what it looks like. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was big as a 70 kilometer cigar. And the entrance was 7 meters down on a place where David had found the entrance, and he had located the entrance, and it was placed 10 kilometers outside my hometown, 7 meters down in earth. So we have to dig to come to the entrance into the spaceship.
Oh man.
So the project started there. Now we will make sure that we can go down to the entrance. And all of you we have to move out to this little village outside my hometown. And we started this project by building David's and his girlfriend's house.
Oh, Christ.
He had bought the land.
Yeah.
Where the entrance was. So we built that house, and we built another person in the management team, his girlfriend's house. Me and my girlfriend, we rented an old summer cottage in that village. And then we bought a machine that you dig with, a big one.
Digger, yeah.
Yeah. And one guy who was an engineer, he was responsible for the digging. So we started dig.
And so you're digging for this spaceship?
Yeah, for the entrance.
Which was 7 miles down, apparently?
7 meters.
Oh, only 7 meters. Okay, fine, fine. So, I mean, that's like what, two-story building, 2.5-story building, something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Wow. Wow, this is a lot to process. Oh man, I'm glad I'm not like drunk or high or anything right now. I'll be losing my mind. Yeah. So this guy tells you this story, and I imagine, of course, you will believe it instantly. I mean, you guys are in this kind of, you're in deep in the Scientology process at the moment, and at this point, you'd probably believed anything you were told.
Yeah.
Who paid for all of the, the rental of the diggers and the stuff like that? Who was this funded obviously by David?
We paid for it ourselves.
So you guys were also paying out of your pocket to build this dude's house, basically.
Well, no, not for his house. I don't remember how that was paid for.
But of course, you were used as labor, obviously, to do all these to do all these things.
Yeah, we did.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
So you're digging down.
Mm.
Did you find the spaceship?
You want me to tell you that?
Yes, please.
Well, it's in my book.
I am 100% going to read your book.
Yeah.
Cult with a K, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
Cult with a K. All right.
Well, you can imagine, since I'm sitting here right now on Earth, that we didn't succeed.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, but we did this project in several months, and that was the start of the process of me leaving the Church of Scientology.
Right. Okay.
Because one day, well, it's kind of a long story, but my doubt started here.
Of course. Yeah.
Not that evening, but later on, a couple of months later, my doubt started, and we were, when you're in this group, in this kind of group, you don't question. If you have a management team who are, you consider very smart and nice people, and you are in this group, you don't question, because if you do, you risk your position in the group.
Of course.
So no one dared to question it. But there was another guy who I once thought, he said something that made me think that he has doubts as well as I have. So I dared to start to talk to him about it. So we did that, just him and me. And then it ended up one day when suddenly I got a phone call from this guy. He told me that there are Scientology security police doing a what do you call it? Razzia? Do you say that?
Russia?
Yeah. Well, they came up from Copenhagen.
Right.
Guys in uniform. They have uniforms in Scientology.
Wow.
In Copenhagen still is the international headquarters for Europe in Church of Scientology. So they have a security police corps, and a bunch of them came up to Hässleholm, to my hometown, because someone had told them what we were doing. So they came up to our premises and broke into the premises and stopped the whole thing. And they did not arrest people, but you could say that they arrested the management team in our group. And they wanted to get in hold of David, the Englishman, but he escaped. He managed to escape. Wow. Because it was, as I told you, it was forbidden what we did. So yeah. And when he called me, my friend, and told me that they are in our premises right now doing this investigation, then I just took my car, and drove away. I left town, and I felt that this was it. I'm leaving. So that's the point when I left Church of Scientology.
I am really good at speaking. I have no fucking idea what to say.
Oh, I know.
Wow, what a
Do you understand why I didn't dare to to tell people in the beginning about this?
Of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. I mean, it's a very interesting thing to happen, a very interesting thing to occur. I think it's very easy to manipulate other human beings because we're emotional. We're emotional people. We're a very emotional species. And if you can control somebody's emotion, you can control their behavior, and that's just how it is. And that's very much something that happened here. It was a huge psychological operation, and you're warmed up for a matter of years. So it makes sense. It makes sense how this can happen. Did they catch this David guy? The Scientology police? I mean, even if you just came on here and said, Jack, man, like they have like their own like police force, I'd still be freaked out. There's a branch of police within Scientology. There's like an authority group that enforce what's allowed and what's not allowed in Scientology. That's crazy enough in itself. Did they catch this David guy?
No, they didn't. It was a rumor saying that he went to South America, becoming a diamond dealer.
Oh God, it gets better.
And then I found out that he, when I were doing research for my book, I found out I found a funeral ad in St. Petersburg News. St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah.
So he died in 1986, I think.
Wow. It makes so much sense he went to Florida. I bet he fit right in there. No one would have never noticed.
No, that's right. And Church of Scientology has big, they have Clearwater in Florida. You know that place? It's a town in Florida.
Yeah.
Near St. Petersburg. In Clearwater, they have the religious international center in Clearwater. So Tom Cruise just built a luxury flat in Clearwater,
right?
For instance. So yeah.
And how was it easy to leave? Is it something that you could just go, yeah, no, I'm out, or is there a process?
No, it's a process normally. For me, it was easy because my way of leaving is exceptional. Most people, when they leave, but for instance, most people are into Scientology much longer. Because they don't have a crazy Englishman doing this kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And when they leave, they are, the Church of Scientology tries to persuade them not to leave. If you insist, they try to in any way for you to stay. And if you leave and if you start questioning and criticizing, then they harass you. And this secret police I told you about in the United States, they have been known for hiring private detectives or following Leah Remini.
Yes, yeah,
actor.
Yeah, the actress who came out and she done a documentary against Scientology, right? And yeah.
There's a lot of high-ranked Scientologists who were defectors, the latest xenu, and they have been really harassed by the Church of Scientology secret police force in many ways. They try to what do you say when they
blackmail?
No, not blackmail. They try to find information about you that are incriminating.
Yes.
Bad for you. So they hire private detectives going through your garbage.
Wow. I also imagine that they can find some of that dirt, let's call it dirt on you, to use as leverage during the e-meter reading audit thing, right? Because if you're holding on to like a secret or something you've done wrong, or confession basically, I mean, I imagine that gets written down, it goes somewhere, that gets kept, and then one day, you never know, 1 minute you're confessing to, I don't know, stealing some money from your nan or some shit, and then all of a sudden you're big and famous, and hold on, we're going to go to the papers, you can't leave.
Exactly. That's correct. They do that. So,
and you know, you don't have to be really qualified or really clued up on Scientology to know that a lot of this has gone on. I feel there are loads of celebrities that have been called out and they've had a real tough time after donating millions, a matter of millions for some, who have paid up to £1 to £5 million to the Church of Scientology and then defect after. You know, they've left all of that behind. Is it really about the money? Is this a money generating thing? Is that what Scientology is? Or is it a cult? Is Scientology a cult?
Scientology is definitely a cult. If you look at the criteria that most researchers use when they define cults, so they can check, you can check all the boxes for it.
So their way of recruitment, of course, checks out as a cult. Their way of controlling information internally through the lack of freedom of speech on the topic of Scientology, cult. Yeah. The way in which it's so difficult to leave and they try to use fear and intimidation to stop you from leaving, cult. The way in which they try to get you, to influence you to cut connections and ties with the people who speak out against Scientology, cult.
Exactly.
Wow, man, that's insane. And after you left, was it a very difficult process for you? Because there's obviously you've got this new trauma now to deal with, you know, of being involved in this crazy cult.
Yeah.
And then you've got to go through a process of recovery to not only unlearn and rewire who you are because you've attached yourself to this thing. What was that like? How was that process for you?
Yes, for me, it was, I think, compared to many others, not so hard. I think I had 2 or 3 months of kind of a light depression. You know, when you discover suddenly that everything you have believed in the latest five years just disappear. Most like your legs are, what do you say in English?
Swept away.
Yeah. So, but then I was lucky because I applied and were accepted into the university. So I started a university education.
Good.
3 months, I think it was 3 months after I left. So I got into a new context, got new friends, and another town, and started to slowly, what was the word you said?
Well, reinventing yourself.
Yeah, reinventing
rewiring your brain.
Yeah, my mind. Destructure my cognitive map. It took a while, but for me, since I got into this so short time after leaving, quite short time, I think I was, adapting to a new way of life. If you take, for instance, I was almost an adult when I was manipulated into the Church of Scientology. If you are born into a cult, whatever it is, if your parents are cult members, then you have the research shows that these people are, most of them are having big troubles when they leave the cult. If you're born into a cult, when you become a teenager, a lot of teenagers revolt against your parents. So a lot of teenagers leave the cult. It's a hard decision for them because it means that you have to disconnect from a family if they are still in the cult. But if they do, a lot of them have a lot of problems, psychological problems. A lot of them commit suicide. It's really hard for them to adapt since you have been, you had no choice and you were raised in this kind of thinking. So
go on, sorry.
I was lucky.
Yeah, of course. It sounds like you had a wild exit, an absolute wild time. However, it was kind of probably a blessing in disguise for you, because it made it blatantly obvious for you were doing the right thing. I don't imagine you were in any doubt at the time that you weren't going back.
No.
But of course, for a lot of people, if we sort of call it a soft exit, where they just want to leave because they think it might just be absolute bullshit, I imagine there's a lot of doubt, and then a lot of guilt, and then a lot of different whirlwind of emotions that make it a difficult, more traumatic process. And without the support in place for vulnerable people like that, struggling with those emotions, for a lot of people, there's only one way out.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you were shamed into not wanting to share this story for a very long time. And I imagine these people trying to leave and deal with these emotions feel the same. And I imagine they feel stupid and embarrassed and don't want to talk to people about it. And then they just bottle that up, and then they think, they know how to deal with that the best. And sometimes people just need support and help. Is there much support and help now for people who are leaving the cult of Scientology nowadays?
Yeah, I think nowadays there are certainly ways of getting help. There are different. I know we talked about leah remini.
Mm-hmm.
There are a community in the United States of a lot of ex-Scientologists who are helping people who want to defect from Scientology. I know there are there's an organization in Sweden helping people.
Good.
From every cult. So there is more help today than it was when I left.
That's amazing. And I imagine it was very rewarding for you. I imagine when you first told your story, you eventually told your wife, I imagine, for the first time.
Yeah.
How many years were you with your wife before you actually broke it to her? Because I bet, if I reacted like this, I bet wow. How many years did you sort of keep this inside?
It was a couple of years.
And I bet that felt amazing getting it out.
Yeah, it was.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, look, what's the name of your book? Cult with a K, right?
Yeah.
We'll stick the link in the description. I'm definitely going to read your book. I'm reading a book at the moment called The Hidden Life of Trees. Once I finish that, I'm going to give Cult a read. I'm assuming you haven't got an audiobook version?
Audible? No.
No, so there's no audiobook. Okay, fine. I'll just read it.
Yeah.
And
not yet. I hope it will be an Audible edition.
Yeah. Oh, is it because you've got to get someone to read it all, right? I mean, that's I guess you could do it yourself, but that's a lot of reading.
No, I don't want to. No, not in English. But I have an English publisher who's working. He's working on the publisher firm is working on that. So,
do you ever, just before we end it, are you ever worried, for any repercussions for coming out and speaking against the Scientology movement? Is this something that ever concerns you?
Yes, absolutely. I have big concerns. Mostly, the biggest concerns did occur just before I were to publish it in Sweden. But then there was a guy who were in a talk show in TV. He was a former Scientologist. He had wrote more a documentary book.
Right.
About he had been into Scientology for 25 years, and he wrote a book about it. And we were interviewed in the biggest Swedish broadcasting show in Sweden. So I contacted him, asking him, "Have you been harassed? How has the church treated you since when you came out with this criticism?" And he told me that he had smaller problems, but not big ones. So then, I guess, since my book, I just have to tell you, my book is half fiction and half documentary.
Yes. Yeah, I
read about that. It's a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
But it's based on my experiences. So it's not a documentary story.
Mm-hmm. That, as long as it's not a religion, as long as you didn't take a bunch of inspiration when I were on Hubbard, I'm sure it's that.
Absolutely not.
I look forward to giving it a read. Thanks so much for coming on. I could speak to you for hours about this, and I'm sure there's a lot more in the book that will detail a lot more information. I'll leave the link to the book in the description. Thanks so much for coming on, or should I say taximaket. That's pretty much as far as my Swedish goes. I do know one other word, but it's rude because that's all my friends seem to get me to learn of the language. And I'll give your book a read, and I'd love to have you on again after I read the book, and we'll run through everything. It'll be awesome. Great to chat, and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Catch you later, Stefan.
Great to be with you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.